Now let's take a look at painting using Spotlight. So Spotlight is going to allow us to paint using existing images. Maybe we've got some stock images or photographs that we've taken or purchased, and we want to incorporate some of that photographic detail into our texture. And so what we can do is go up to Texture, and the first thing we want to do is import those images as textures. So we'll go to Import. And in this case, we'll provide one with our project files, but you can really use any image that you want to use. So navigate to that image, and in this case, I'm going to use this Rust image. We'll open that up. So now it's just sort of loaded into memory as a texture. We need to load it into a Spotlight. So we'll select the Rust texture, and we want to add it to Spotlight. So we'll click Add to Spotlight. Turn off the light box. So we get the image over our model, and then we also get this ring, and this ring is going to allow us to do lots of things. So if I select the ring inside of here, I can sort of move this around and out of the way. If I select inside this part, I can actually move the texture around. If I come in here and click and drag, I can scale the texture. So all these little things on the outside of the ring mean something. I can rotate it by clicking on this one, and you can see that it's based on the pivot of where our little control ring is located. Okay, I can also, let's see, change the spotlight radius. And so this is going to be what allows us to change how we're projecting this in. So in order to start projecting, we're going to hit Z. And now you can see that I get this little sort of ghostly indicator of where I'm actually painting that. Hit Z again, and I can move the image around, okay? I can also, it doesn't work as well with when you don't have a lot of images, but when you do, for instance, if I had, let's go up to Texture, and let's just for fun add a couple of these other images here. So we'll add this wood and maybe this one as well. So now we've got 3 textures. We can actually organize those off to the side. So if we hit this tile, and then we can come in and bring in the one that we want, okay? So now at this point I can come in, let's say I want to add this detail to the character's back. Just going back and forth between Z, I can get this in the right position, kind of get the detail that I want, okay? We can also change the opacity here. You can see that. And so then I can come in and select white and 100% RGB. And let me actually turn off symmetry. And so now I can paint through this. And so you can see that I'm actually getting kind of 100% of that. If I wanted to just fade it on, I could do like a 50% in the RGB. Move it around. And I could also use my pen pressure to kind of change that around. So if you want to move it around, come down here and just kind of go back and forth, and you can start to incorporate, parts of the texture that you want and kind of rotate this around. And again, it's all based on the part of the image that's above this. So if I go up here and start painting on the edge of the image right now, there's going to be a line there. So there are ways to do like a tiling texture, but so you can see I got a line right there, so I can come up in here and kind of cover it up by painting a little bit more in here. Okay, and this can be incorporated into your basic painting workflow. So, you could add a little bit of detail here with, I think that's a little bit too much. You can add a little bit of detail here with some of your image, just maybe on one side or the other. And then you can come back in and start to layer on top of that, okay? So if I hit Shift Z, you can see I'm now out of Spotlight. I've turned that off. You can also come in here and turn it on and off here. But then I can come in, let's say, sample back that red and get kind of a spray. And then we can just sort of blend that back in a little bit. We don't want to remove it totally, but we just want to blend it in with our existing texture just a little bit more. As you can see, it's a little bit more on the yellow side. There are also ways in Spotlight to adjust the color. So let's actually look at that here in a second. So I can come in here and just sort of start to break this up a little bit. And it just blends it back in. We still get a lot of that detail, but it just kind of blends it back in with the rest of the body. Okay, so if we go back and turn on Spotlight again, so now it's on, we hit Z, we can actually do modifications to this. So if I want to change the hue, I can drag on the hue and actually modify this. So I can make it a little bit more red before I start painting. So now I've got this red that I'm able to paint. Okay, or I can change it even more. I can take the saturation and kind of desaturate it a little bit. So you can do lots of different kinds of adjustments to your image before you lay down the paint, which is really handy. Okay, and again, when you're done, if you want to kind of blend it back in, you can always go back in and do that. That gives you even just a little bit more variation in there to add, more interest to your skin here. All right, so experiment with that. Try bringing in several images at a time, add them to a spotlight, and then use that ring. Just keep in mind that if you hold the middle, it's just going to move the ring around. You can organize things by hitting some of these buttons over here. Bring your image over, scale it, rotate it, okay? And then when you hit Z, you'll be able to paint through it depending on where it is. So you want to have it stationed over the spot on your model that you want to paint. Okay, so that's a look at using Spotlight to help us in texturing and poly painting. The next thing we'll talk about is working with UVs. So up to this point, we haven't had to worry about that at all. The time when we need to worry about it is if we're going to be doing any sort of UV-based modeling or texturing, modeling specifically, any functions like that, and there are a few of those. But really, the main thing is when we want to get this texture out of ZBrush, normally we're going to want to create a UV-based texture, and there is definitely a way to do that. And we'll talk about in the next lesson creating the UVs for that texture.